science finally explains DMT's machine elves. There's a popular scientific theory for why thousands of people on DMT report meeting intelligent elves. It suggests it's all just an elaborate trick of the brain, a complex but ultimately meaningless hallucination. But what if that's not the whole story? For decades, mind-bending reports have come back from the frontiers of consciousness. People return from these brief journeys with stories that seem to shatter our understanding of reality. They talk about breaking through a veil and entering a space that feels, as many put it, more real than reality. And in that space, they realize they aren't alone. They meet beings, intelligent, seemingly autonomous, and utterly alien. The most famous of these are the self-transforming machine elves, a phrase coined by the late ethnobotanist Terence McKenna. He described them as tykes, made of light and language, who sing objects into existence and greet travelers with a strange sense of familiarity, like long-lost family. And these aren't just one-off stories. They're a consistent phenomenon. From clinical trials at Johns Hopkins to underground explorations, the reports echo one another with uncanny similarity. Encounters with jesters, guides, insectoids, and these playful, hyper-intelligent elves. This has created a mystery that has haunted neuroscience and philosophy for half a century. What are these entities? Are they just our brain's circuitry misfiring in a spectacular light show, creating puppets from the chaos of our subconscious? Or are these voyagers actually breaking through to something else, an alternate dimension, populated by real, independent beings? Science has a compelling, brain-based explanation, but as we'll see, that explanation, as neat as it is, might not cover everything. We're going to explore the leading neuroscientific theories and stack them up against stranger ideas of alternate dimensions and conscious agents to see what we find. The answer might be far more complex and way more astonishing than you can imagine. Section 1. The scientific explanation, a symphony of chaos. To understand the mainstream scientific idea, you first have to get what DMT actually does to the brain. Think of your brain's day-to-day operations. A big part of that is a network called the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is active when you're thinking about yourself, daydreaming, or worrying about the future. It's the storyteller of your ego. It helps maintain a consistent story of who you are. When DMT enters the system, it acts like a key for several locks in the brain. But the one most critical to the psychedelic experience is the serotonin 5-HT2A receptor. When this system is activated, the DMN's usual top-down influence dissolves. The orderly flow of information in your brain breaks down and is replaced by a state of hyperconnectivity. Brain departments that rarely talk to each other suddenly open direct lines. The auditory cortex might start chatting with the visual cortex, letting you see sound. Your memory centers might ping your emotional centers, creating a cascade of feeling and insight. Some neuroscientists refer to this as an increase in brain entropy. This isn't total chaos, but a state of higher complexity and less predictability. It's in this neural storm that a leading hypothesis for entity encounters is born: overactive agency detection. Our brains are pattern-finding machines. It's a survival trait. For millennia, it was safer to assume that a rustle in the grass was a predator, not just the wind. We're hardwired to see agency, another mind, another will, in the world around us. We see faces in clouds and figures in TV static. Now imagine that tendency amplified 1,000 times. When the brain is flooded with the entropic storm of DMT, it desperately tries to make sense of the noise. It scans the blizzard of neural signals for a pattern it recognizes. And what's the most compelling pattern a human brain can find? Another conscious agent. According to this model, the machine elves are the ultimate face in the clouds. They are the brain's agent detection system on overdrive, constructing what feels like an independent, intelligent being from unstructured neural activity. The brain takes the noise and weaves a story. It projects a personality, a form, and an intelligence because that's what it evolved to do. The entity feels separate because the very network that defines your sense of self, the DMN, has temporarily taken a back seat. When the storyteller of you goes quiet, any thought can feel like it's coming from somewhere else. This model is supported by some fascinating anecdotal reports from people with aphantasia, a condition where they can't voluntarily create mental images. They can't picture an apple in their mind's eye. Yet, some report that on DMT, they still have profound entity encounters. They describe a sensed presence, a feeling of communication, and an interaction with an independent intelligence, all without the visuals. This suggests the core experience isn't about seeing an elf, but a deeper perception of agency that the brain then tries to interpret. From this scientific perspective, the entities are profoundly real as a psychological experience, but they are internally generated. They are projections sculpted into being by a brain trying to make sense of its own magnificent, temporary, chemical-induced freedom. Essentially, it's the brain talking to itself in a language it has never spoken before. Section 2. The challenge. The unbearable consistency of the elves. This brain-based model is elegant. It's grounded in observable neurobiology and doesn't require us to rewrite the laws of physics. Case closed, right? Well, there's a problem. A big one that the hallucination model struggles to fully contain. If it's all just a trick of the brain, a random projection onto neural noise, why is the trick so consistent? This isn't like dreaming, where one person dreams of flying and another of being chased by clowns. In many reports, especially in Western contexts, the accounts converge. Dr. Rick Strassman, who conducted the first major FDA-approved DMT research in the US back in the 90s, was stunned. He was prepared for bizarre hallucinations, but not for what he got. In his studies, about half of the high-dose sessions involved contact with autonomous beings. He later wrote that he was neither intellectually nor emotionally prepared for the frequency of these encounters. A 2020 survey of over 2,500 DMT users who had experienced entity encounters drilled down into the details. A large number of them described the entities as conscious, intelligent, and benevolent. The most common labels were being, guide, spirit, alien, and helper. The communication was often described as telepathic, and certain archetypes seem to repeat. You have the machine elves, of course, geometric, playful beings that seem to be hard at work. There are insectoids, often giant praying mantises, that feel cold and clinical. There are jesters and tricksters, and guides who offer wisdom or comfort. While there's a lot of variety, these clusters of motifs are striking. But it's the feeling of the experience that really challenges the simple hallucination model. People don't say, "I had a hallucination of an elf." They say, "I met a being." They describe these entities as having their own will and an intelligence that is clearly not their own. A huge percentage of users in studies have described the encounter as feeling more real than reality. This ontological shock, the collision with something that feels utterly real and external, can permanently change a person's worldview. The Johns Hopkins study found that a substantial number of participants who identified as atheists before the experience no longer did so afterward. A single 10-minute experience was reported to be powerful enough to shake a lifetime of materialist belief. Is a simple hallucination, a trick of the mind, really powerful enough to do that? The consistency of the reports, the shared archetypes, and the profound, life-altering sense of reality. It all puts pressure on the brain-based model. It feels like an incomplete answer. It might explain the how, the neural mechanics, but it struggles with the what and the why. It leaves you with a nagging feeling that something important is being missed. Section 3. The comparison, generator versus receiver. This leads us to the heart of the debate. It's a fundamental question about the brain itself. Is the brain a generator of consciousness, creating everything from within? Or is it more like a receiver, a biological antenna that's normally tuned to the frequency we call reality? Let's put the two big ideas side by side. On one side, you have the brain as a generator model. This is the mainstream view we've been talking about. The entities are complex hallucinations. They are archetypes, pulled from what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, universal symbols like the trickster or the healer, given breathtaking form by a brain on DMT. The strength of this model is its simplicity and grounding in neurobiology. Its weakness is that it feels dismissive of the experience and struggles to explain why so many people report such similar things. On the other side, we have the brain as a receiver model. This is where things get much stranger and more speculative. The simplest version is the spiritual or multidimensional view. These entities are real beings from another dimension. Our brains, the thinking goes, have a filter that keeps us focused on surviving in this reality. DMT temporarily disables that filter, opening a brief window into a reality that's always there, teeming with life. But you don't have to be a spiritualist to entertain a version of this idea. A few bold researchers are exploring formal, though highly speculative, frameworks around this concept. This is where we leave the beaten path of mainstream science and meet people like Dr. Andrew Gallimore, a neurobiologist, and Donald Hoffman, a cognitive scientist. They propose that the hallucination-only model is just an assumption, not a proven fact. They argue that we should at least consider the possibility that DMT perturbs our entire perceptual interface. Hoffman's work suggests our conscious mind is like a VR headset. It normally runs one program, consensus reality. He argues this reality isn't a true window onto the world, but a simplified user interface, like the icons on your desktop, that hides the terrifying complexity of what's really there. In this speculative model, DMT doesn't just create a new program within the headset. It glitches the fundamental operating system, pushing your consciousness into regions of experience space that operate under different rules. And in these new regions, you might perceive what they call traces of other conscious agents that are normally invisible to us. The machine elves, then, are your brain's best attempt to render these incomprehensible traces into a stable form. Dr. Gallimore uses a powerful analogy. The DMT world doesn't break out of you. It breaks into you. The brain isn't the generator. It's the rendering engine being hijacked by an external signal. This would explain why the worlds feel so complex and alien. Your brain didn't evolve to create them. The strength of this receiver model is that it takes the user's experience seriously and offers an explanation for the consistency and perceived intelligence of the entities. Its weakness is that it's highly speculative and requires us to consider things for which we have no direct proof yet. But crucially, proponents argue this model is designed to be testable. Gallimore and others have proposed experiments, like using extended-state DMT infusions, to see if these entities could provide new, verifiable information. It's important to note these are proposals, not active experiments with pending results, but they point toward a fascinating future. Section 4. The synthesis. The doorway and the key. So, which is it? Is it all in your head, or is it another world? What if that's a false choice? The truth may not be one or the other, but a synthesis of both. The brain is, without a doubt, the hardware. The neurochemistry is undeniable. The entire experience, no matter how alien, is happening within the folds of your cerebral cortex. The brain is the rendering engine. That part of the scientific model is almost certainly correct. But the most profound question remains: what is the source of the data that the brain is rendering? Perhaps the brain is a receiver, and the entities are traces of something external. But maybe the brain, as the receiver, has to interpret that bizarre, high-dimensional signal using its own internal library of symbols, images, and archetypes. The signal might be external, but the final picture is filtered through our very human, very personal hardware. This synthesis could explain everything. It could explain the consistency of the encounters. The external signal or broadcast is the same for everyone. But it could also explain the individual variations. Each person's brain, with its unique wiring, renders that broadcast slightly differently. The same underlying trace might be rendered as a machine elf for a sci-fi fan, an angel for a religious person, or a complex geometric form for a mathematician. They are all perceiving the same something, but interpreting it through their own cognitive lens. This brings us to a much deeper question, one that scientists like Hoffman are asking. Maybe the real question isn't, is it a hallucination or is it real? The deeper question is, what are the limits of our perception, and what is the nature of a reality that can be so radically transformed by a simple molecule? Perhaps the very distinction we make between our internal world of thought and the external world of matter is the real illusion. Perhaps that boundary is far more permeable than we think. Mainstream science suggests these entities are created by the brain. Thousands of credible witnesses report they are real and independent. The truth could be something far stranger than either side has fully grasped. It may be that the brain is not a fortress, but a doorway. And for a few fleeting, terrifying, and ecstatic minutes, DMT provides the key. Conclusion. We started with a mystery, the impossible machine elves that dance in the minds of DMT users. We journeyed through the brain's chemistry, seeing how it could construct these beings from an overload of information. We confronted the profound challenge their consistency poses to that simple explanation, and we explored the radical possibility that our brains are not just generators, but receivers, tuning into a reality that lies just beyond our normal perception. The science is not settled. The final explanation remains tantalizingly out of reach. But the question has been cracked wide open, leading us to a mystery that touches on the very nature of life, death, and consciousness itself. What do you think? Is this a journey into the deepest parts of the mind, or a journey into an entirely different dimension? Are the machine elves a beautiful hallucination, or are they waiting for us on the other side? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring the mind-bending frontiers where science and mystery collide, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more explorations into the nature of reality.